Vo Thanh Hiền was born in Vietnam, the child of a Vietnamese woman and an American soldier. Hiền grew up enduring the teasing of friends simply because he was biracial. But worse than the teasing was the painful look in his mother's eyes every time someone asked about him. She tried to hide the truth about his father, not out of shame, but to keep her son safe during a volatile time in the war. For more than 50 years, Hiền lived with a single question: who is my father? And then, almost like a miracle, after 5 failed DNA tests, he finally received a call from a man halfway around the world. Was this the father he had been searching for? Let's find out together. After 50 years and 5 DNA tests, a Vietnamese Amerasian meets his US soldier father.
Cái cuộc đời của tôi kể là cái câu chuyện đó nhằm cái mục đích là tạo thêm cái động lực cho những người có cái hoàn cảnh, có cái quá khứ giống như tôi, không ngừng nghĩ và luôn luôn hy vọng để tìm kiếm thân nhân hay cội nguồn của mình, dù bất cứ ở nơi đâu hay là ở hải ngoại.
Going back many years to the time when American troops were still stationed in Vietnam. In early 1969, Thomas J. Haggard, a young American soldier just 20 years old, was assigned to Gen Rong in Quy Nhon. There, he happened to meet a Vietnamese woman working as a server. Her name was Vo Thi Dung, born in 1942. Fate brought them together, and the two grew close. They decided to rent a small house and live together as husband and wife. Later, Ms. Dung became pregnant, and Thomas took great care of her. When she was about 4 months along, Thomas had to return to the United States to visit his seriously ill father, who would later become Hien's grandfather. Before leaving, Thomas confided in his mother that he was in love with a Vietnamese woman and that she was carrying his child. Hearing this, his mother was delighted and even bought gifts to send to Vietnam, gifts meant for her future daughter-in-law. When Thomas returned to Vietnam, he arranged a place for Ms. Dung and the baby, preparing everything they would need to welcome their first child. Those keepsakes are things Hien still remembers and holds on to. However, as the birth approached, his mother decided to return to her hometown to deliver the baby, where her relatives and siblings could help take care of her. She planned to return to Thomas after giving birth. But when Ms. Dung brought baby Hien back, Thomas had already left Vietnam. She went to look for Thomas, asking Mr. Trung and the people in the area, but no one had received any message from Thomas. And from that moment, they lost contact. Hien grew up in his mother's arms without ever knowing who his father was. Life for the two of them was difficult, filled with gossip and harsh remarks. Even so, his mother still sent him to a small village school. Then one dark night in 1976, around 3 a.m., he heard gunfire across the Kap Chuan River, fighting between Cambodia and Vietnam. In that moment, he and his family had to flee, moving to T Dam in Phu Tan District in Giang Province. At this new place, he continued going to school and lived with his mother, his grandmother, and a woman he called Ma Bei, with relatives living nearby as well. After their lives became more stable, his mother opened a small coffee shop inside downtown, near the S-shaped bridge. There, Hien went back to school from 2nd grade through 9th grade, before having to stop. Looking back on his school years, Hien said that children like him, Amerasians, were often teased relentlessly by their classmates. There were moments when he couldn't take it anymore, and he fought back. But as he grew older, he learned to control himself and stopped reacting that way. Still, one question always weighed on his heart. Where is my father? His mother once told him that after 1975, those who had been involved with American soldiers were terrified. Almost all letters, photos, and anything connected to those relationships had been burned or lost. Everything survived only in memory. When he got a little older, Hien returned to his old hometown at Nui Sam in Chau Doc. There, he decided to go back to school once more, but again, it lasted only a short time. Around this period, some acquaintances introduced him to photography. He learned the craft and worked as a photographer for 7 years. In 1991, his mother filed Amerasian paperwork for him. On January 15, 1993, he was called in for his first interview at 184 Bis Pasteur Street. District 1, Saigon. He remembers that at the time, the place was called the Department of Foreign Affairs. During the interview, the ODP delegation asked him for documents concerning his father and mother. He told them, "I was honest. I just said things the way they were. My parents lived together out of love. They never made any official documents or legal papers. We did have photos of my father and mother, but because we lived near the border with constant fighting and war, everything was lost or burned." After hearing that, the ODP delegation refused. They insisted that he must have at least one piece of evidence proving the relationship. Without it, they could not process his case. The interview failed, and he was rejected. Afterward, he asked around and learned that at 45 Hoa Binh Street, Ward 19, Tan Binh District, later renamed Phu Trung Ward, Tin Phu District, there had been a transition center for Amerasian children. According to people living there, the place had been purchased and built by the Americans to house Amerasians while they waited for paperwork to be processed. The center was dissolved in 1998. In 1993, Hien lived there for several months. And there, he met two people he said he owes a great deal to, Hung and Brian. Hien said, "The life I have today is thanks in large part to Hung and Brian." Brian's full name is Brian Jord, a Danish citizen. He is the founder and director of the nonprofit organization Father Founded. It is a free, charitable organization that helps Amerasian children, mostly in Asian countries, search for their roots. The story began in 1992 when Brian was still a student traveling in Saigon. He saw many Amerasian young adults wandering the streets of the city center. They were about his age. Some could speak a little English, and they told him they were children of American soldiers who served in Vietnam, and their mothers were Vietnamese. They were trying to get visas to go to the US. Brian began talking with them, befriending those often called My Lai or Con Lai. He learned they faced constant discrimination because of their appearance. Many stories brought tears to his eyes. Deep inside, he felt they had done nothing wrong. Brian wanted to help, but didn't yet know how. And that is how Father Founded eventually came to life. For many years, Brian and his volunteers have worked for free, helping Amerasians find their biological fathers. Hien was one of the people Brian helped. Brian helped him get DNA samples to search for his father. During this time, Hien got married and had 2 sons. He lived with his wife and mother, struggling to make a living through all kinds of manual jobs. In 2013, his wife and mother sold drinks from a street cart near Dam Son to get by. Around 2015 to 2016, he moved to Hoc Mon, Saigon, working as a motorbike driver while his wife worked in a factory to support their children's education. Hien said he never sought his father in order to go to America. He said, "I'm older now. Life is hard, but sometimes it gets better, sometimes worse. I have land. I have a home in Saigon, and I work with my own hands. Whether I go to America or not, that's not the issue. What weighs on me most is this. I just want to know my roots, my ancestors. If Hung and Brian can help me find my father, I would be very grateful. Because if we find him and he has already passed away, at least I would have his picture to worship. And if he's still alive, of course, I would be very happy." And then a miracle happened. In 2017, Brian collected Hien's DNA for the 5th time. During the search for Hien's father, Hung and Brian worked tirelessly. They had to enlist the help of Jacqueline, a DNA analyst at Ancestry in the US, to collect a sample from a man suspected to be Hien's father for comparison. Hien recalled that he could never forget the moment at the end of 2021 when Hung said to him, "Hien, your father has sent you a letter. Have you received it yet?" But because life was difficult and he had to move frequently, Hien never received that letter. A year later, Hung asked again, "So, have you received your father's letter yet?" Hien replied, "No, I haven't received anything at all. I don't know anything about it." Sometime later, around 2 a.m. one night, Hung called him and said, "During this period, you'll be getting some news. Brian will call you, and then your father will call you as well." On his side, Thomas said he had sent a letter to his son in 2020, but had received no reply because Hien had moved to Hoc Mon and was no longer at the temporary residence on Kin Tan Hoa Street, District 11. Afterwards, Jacqueline, through Brian and Hung, found Hien's Facebook account to give to Thomas. Jacqueline also called Hien to tell him that his father would call him soon. Even though he had only completed 9th grade, Hien could understand a little English and could stammer a few words in response. Hearing that his father would call him, Hien was extremely nervous. Then the phone rang. For the first time, father and son met after 50 years of never knowing each other's faces. What made it even more special was that his mother was also present on the call.
Vừa nhìn vào Messenger ở bên cái người ở bên kia trong máy, tôi vừa nhìn vào, tôi thấy có cái gì đó nó rất là lúi, nó lúi lắm, nó cảm tình, nó thân thiện, khó tả. Lúc đó mẹ của tôi nói là đúng rồi, cha của con, để mẹ nói chuyện. Lúc bây giờ tôi chìm vô trong cái cảm xúc, tôi chỉ ngồi khóc.
He continued, "It felt like him, but how could it be as certain as the person who gave birth to me? My mother was sitting next to me. She looked, and she knew. Even after more than 50 years, the moment my mother looked, she said, 'Yes, this is your father.'" At that moment, his mother spoke to his father, speaking in broken Vietnamese, while Hien could only sit and cry from the overwhelming joy and fulfillment. The happiness of finally finding his father was immense, knowing that at last, he had a proper father. Hien shared, "Everyone has their own beliefs, but for me, every living being must have roots. Let alone humans, we obviously must have ancestors. So when Hung and Brian helped me find my father, I was overjoyed. I never thought about going to America. I only knew that I had found my father." Thomas still decided to bring his son's family to the U.S. to reunite and make up for the childhood Hien had without a father. He recalled that during the Vietnam War, he was only allowed to stay for 1 year according to regulations, and then he was called back to the U.S., never able to see his wife and the child who had not yet been born. Perhaps this regret has been the most lingering sorrow in his life. The joy was short-lived. After meeting his father, Vietnam entered the COVID-19 pandemic. Hien remembered clearly. On August 16, 2021, his wife passed away from COVID while he was holding her at Bin Tan Hospital. The grief of losing his wife had not yet eased, and then tragedy struck again. On August 31st, 2021, his mother also passed away from the pandemic. At that time, the family consisted only of the three of them, father and two sons, who leaned on each other, together with his future daughter-in-law, Tran Thi Tuoi. Before his mother passed away, a neighbor named Nguyen Thi Shuyen, feeling sympathy for Hien's fate, often came by to care for Hien and his children. Over time, Hien developed feelings for Shuyen and expressed his wish to marry her. Later, Thomas provided all the necessary documents and photos to help Hien write a letter to submit an application at the U.S. consulate in Saigon to apply for a U.S. immigration visa under the Amerasian Homecoming Act. With all the paperwork complete, Hien went to the U.S. on June 30th, 2023, along with his son, his current wife, and her daughter, to reunite with his father Thomas and his half-siblings in America. This was the most fulfilling and happiest ending for Hien and his family, even though there was still some regret that his mother and first wife had passed away. Currently, Hien lives in St. Paul, and his father, Thomas, lives in Minneapolis. The two cities are known as the Twin Cities in Minnesota. His eldest son is still in Vietnam, where he got married and now has one child. Hien shared that from the first days he arrived in the U.S., the government helped his family a lot, providing housing and monthly living allowances, arranging English classes, and school for his children. He and his wife now work in a bread factory.
Đây là căn nhà tôi sinh sống. Tôi bước chân qua thì hội ODB á, phái đoàn ở chính phủ Hoa Kỳ họ đã lo sẵn cái căn nhà này, thuê căn nhà này cho tôi ở.
He confided, "Sometimes I feel very sad. Sad for my mother and my wife, two women who spent their lives tied to the fate of a biracial child. Just when it seemed life could be a little easier, they both left me. Then I feel sad again, thinking that my fate is strange. I had no father and lived in my mother's arms. When my father and mother finally reunited, my mother handed me to my father, and then she passed away. And my first wife, who was with me for so many years, when our children grew up, she suddenly left too."
Như người ta nói á, ở trong cái đời người mình á, cái nghiệp và cái phước á, nó hiện rõ lắm, mà tôi không thể nào diễn giải nổi.
As for Thomas, after returning to the US in 1969, he worked as a police officer until retirement. He married and had 3 daughters. Later, when his wife learned that he had a child in Vietnam, she decided to divorce him. At that time, he left with only a backpack containing documents and necessary items, leaving all other possessions to his wife and children. Today, Hien's 3 half-sisters are married and living stable lives. Hien expressed,
Nhưng mà sau này may mắn hơn là tôi đưa vợ và các con của tôi, gia đình của tôi sang Mỹ để đoàn tụ với cha tôi. Thì bên cạnh đó tôi có 3 người em gái ruột. Ba cô em cũng thương yêu tôi, vợ và các con gia đình của tôi. Đây là cái sự may mắn cuộc đời của tôi. Cái nghiệp cũng có, cái phước cũng có.
Every Saturday, Thomas visits Hien and his wife and takes his grandson to his house to play. He also handles the paperwork for his grandson, Hien's eldest son, Vo Hong Vu, for U.S. citizenship and birth registration, which will be sent to Vietnam once completed so the documents can be processed for the U.S.